Hey guys, and welcome to a battle between the mighty and fearsome forces of the Norscans, controlled by Papa Palpatine, up against Noob for Life and his evil and conniving vampire count. So without further ado, let's hop into this battle. So we are on Alpine Ridge here, and this was one of the final games from the recent clan wars we had between Extreme Meme Team and DBD. It was a super fun event overall, and I thought I'd cast this final game as it was particularly tight, engaging, and very kept me on edge the entire time when I was casting it before, and I wanted to relive that thrill. So for the front line of the Norscans, we have some Marauder champions, the elite of the elite as far as the Norscan roster goes, and don't get to see these guys too often, so pretty cool to see them in the front lines here. Can go toe-to-toe very effectively up against Graveguard, and of course tear apart Chaff very quickly. Looks like we also have the Brutes of the Hound as well, regiment-renowned Marauder Berserkers, and the Berserkers in general just look so badass with their dual-wielding axes, incredibly Viking, and all that good stuff. So we have some more Marauder champions as well. So a pretty hardcore front line as far as the Norscans go, which is pretty rare. You tend to see Norscans spreading out with very cheap Marauders overall and are trying to swarm the enemy. But we have a bit of a Norscan geometry here, which is pretty interesting. We then have cheap and cheerful Marauders, building up the rest of the box and protecting this centre pocket, which is where the damage dealers are. Marauder, Hunter, Javelins. So we have 2 units of these guys. I actually currently bring in these guys in groups of 3 with also a Shadowcaster and bring in Wither. So minus 30 armor, these guys can tear apart all kinds of troops. So they don't have the longest range on them. They do have more, of course, on the throwing axe variety, but they do really decent damage. They're anti-large, they can tear apart elite infantry as well, and they're not the worst melee combatants, which is quite nice to see. Now for a leadership core, we do have a Familiar Balefiend of Fire here, coming in with Burning Head, Flaming Sword of Ruin, and Cascading Firecloak. Looks like he's being singled out here for some Spirit Leech, unfortunately for him. It looks like we have the cheap and cheerful Lord here. So we have the Marauder Chieftain just chilling like an absolute boss there on his throne, on top of his very fearsome War Mammoth with its very awesome looking armour. And yeah, basically a cheap Wolfric overall. Does okay in combat. I mean, he can crush, enemy troops, but of course not such a good assassin. And up in the sky, we have a really interesting air force, and I've actually started to adopt this in my Norscan build. So you have the Ferrule Manticore. This one is chevroned up slightly, which has decent damage, but of course can rampage. But it's assisted by a double silver chevroned Frostworm here, which not only does have breath attacks, also has frostbite, slowing its enemies down, and these guys can really pick on isolated targets up in the skies. So without further ado now, let's hop into the Vampire Counts build. It looks like we do have an Air Force, but it is Manfred von Carstein plus a Terrorgeist. These guys will easily be able to overrun this Air Force, unless there is Javelin support, then these guys will need to be really careful. Looks like we have some Fellbats up in the sky as well, just the 1 unit it seems, but these guys are really good for that backline harass, and 3 units of zombies in the front line. So what you can see here, most of the Vampire Counts forces are hidden in the trees, and that's because Noob for Life wants to get the most value out of his breath attacks coming in from the Terrorgeists, and also those Spiritual Leech. So he wants to wipe out the magic of the Norscans before the actual armies do engage. Looks like he has the Dire Pack and some Direwolves just for some backline harass. Then hidden in the trees is the rest of his forces. We have Skeleton Warriors mixed in with Graveguard. Looks like 2 units of Graveguard and some zombies as well as these skeletons right here. We do have 1 unit of Blood Knights as well. Almost a must pick for me. These guys do so much damage. Anti-large, frenzy, all that good stuff. Do some really effective cycle charging. One of the best shock cav in the game. And double Banshee, which I've been seeing a lot of people take recently. And this is perhaps why he wants to get rid of the magic before the main battle does get underway. As these guys, of course, very susceptible to magic damage. But apart from that, nothing on the Norscan roster can really touch them. So without further ado, let's hop into this battle. So it looks like there's going to be just a little bit of sneaky Spirit Leeching so far, as the Norscans do decide to take the high ground here, which is a common tactic, as they are quite a lot faster than the Vampire Counts. And these, Brutes of the Hound and Champions will mulch zombies in a matter of seconds without really taking too much damage. But this isn't a tournament, and both players do need to be attacking. So the reason the zombies are here is so that they can saturate in, slowly die, and that just buys more and more time for Manfred to get in his nasty Spirit Leeches and those breath attacks to come into play as well. Breath attacks along the lines of these Marauder Champions would be such good value. It looks like the Dire Pack is considering charging ahead. They do get counter-charged instead by the Manticore and the Frostworm, and push back though without taking too much damage. And these guys need to get back to protection of their Javelins, because Manfred von Carstein and his Terrorgeist catch these guys out of position like this, they will tear them apart. More Direwolves being used to come through the little gap here and hunt down these Marauder Hunters, and they're going to break into the back line here. just about squeezed their way through, it looks like, for the most part, darting left and right, and they're going to start hunting these guys down pretty damn effectively. As we already said, Marauder Javelins, not the worst in combat, but at the same time, they don't want to be fighting so many vicious doggos. Looks like the Wolves are actually going to be able to fall back as well and escape relatively unharmed. A big breath attack is coming in, trying to snipe this Bellfiend, and unfortunately, it looks like he was about to juke it, but he walked into the Marauder Chieftain, slowing him down and getting him a little bit stuck here. So we do have a Flaming Sword of Ruin going down, and this Air Force trying to get to grips with Manfred as he takes a few Javelins as well. And you can see the amount of damage they've done already. They're so good at taking down those large threats. But in the back line, once again, the Hounds managed to swarm in, trying to isolate one of the Hunters and force them off as quickly as possible. But they're holding strong so far, and in comes the Marauder Chief, and he's going to be having absolutely none of this. And he's starting to pummel those dogs wherever they are. But at the same time, Javelins do take a little bit of a beating. Up in the Air Force as well, the combined Manticore and Frostworm do push those guys away, as in the front line, champions just start eating up zombies, up to 80 kills already. And yeah, zombies obviously not going to have too much of a fun time. But they're doing their job, so yeah, not the end of the world. Looks like one loyal doggo does manage to escape through that gap. A lot of them, other ones, were pinned up. And decent damage overall, though they did manage to force off the Javelins, but nothing to chase them down here. The Terror guys didn't manage to swoop over here, so they are going to rally and get back into their box formation. Still have 36 models, which is quite a lot of damage, as another Spirit Leech does come down on the Fimir Bellfiend. This is really nice play overall so far by the Counts, but at the same time, they have had to pay for this with quite a lot of their own blood. Marauder champions in the front line, doing what they do best, up to 78 kills, and they are raw victorious there, lifting the axes into the sky. We are going to fast forward here a little bit, as the main battle does take a little time to get underway, as the doggos just kind of be constantly trying to harass where possible, with the chieftain protecting as much as possible, and that poor little Balefiend slowly getting sniped out as the zombies seep in one after another just to simply die. But that is their main goal. Manfred taking quite a bit of a beating so far from the Javelins, but of course he does have healing and all that good stuff, as the forces of the Counts do start to emerge from the forest here. Once again, more nasty magic coming in the Bellfiend. He does pop a flaming head simply because he can, and he knows he's not going to be able to use the rest of his Winds magic just to help finish off those zombies as quickly as possible, as the poor die pack do get deleted in the distance there, and the main battle for Middle Earth is about to get underway. So let's go back to normal speed here. Now this Terror Ghost has been slightly isolated up in the sky. Now if the Frostworm can catch it, he can slow it down and allow the Manticore to do some serious damage. It looks like the Fimir Bellfiend has Ride as well, but he's so low health he's probably not going to be able to get back to the main fight to drop any spells without either getting sniped by one of these flying monsters, or just simply breaking from lack of leadership. In comes the Marauder Chieftain, hunting down those Banshees instantly, popping into these guys, but of course they are ethereal overall, and the Marauder Chieftain does not do magic damage, but it looks like he does in fact do fire damage, so yeah, he's putting in some work here, not doing too bad. Fire damage actually a really cool pick here from the Chieftain. Breath attacks are coming in on him, trying to isolate him as much as possible, as fight or die is popped, and just waiting for this air engagement to begin. So the real question is who's going to dive in first and get countercharged. Javelin forcing these guys off so far, doing pretty good damage overall, and the Marauder champions certainly going to be winning this frontline engagement, especially when supported by the Chieftain himself. They're inspired by his pure awesomeness, as all along the front line, Brutes of the Hound are dealing pretty decent damage to the Graveguard overall. They're going to take a lot of damage in return as well, however. Looks like that from it, trying to get back as quickly as possible. Arcane Conduit has been popped, but it looks like he's going to break, as the A engagement does get underway here. And Frostworm doing some pretty decent damage, mainly due to these Marauder Hunters getting so much work up in the high skies. And it looks like Manfred is going to come down to try and hunt down the Marauder Chieftain, but Potion of Full Hardiness has been popped, so he is of course unbreakable, popping in here and doing some really decent damage, and Manfred going to have to start fleeing relatively soon. Looks like some Graveguard attempting to push through to the back lines, but once again intercepted by Marauders. Really nice controlled play so far by Papa Palpatine. As up in the skies, the Frostworm going toe-to-toe here with the Terror guys, doing very well for himself. And those Hunters getting such good value. So, Blood Knights were engaged in the front line, trying to drag down the Marauder Chieftain, but it looks like New for Life realised where the real threat lies, and that is with these Hunters. So he pops an invocation to heck on these guys. They're going to be wrapping around and hammering into the flank of the Hunters here, which is really fantastic play. There's nothing left to protect these guys, and as they come swarming in, the Hunters, they may be decent melee combatants, but they are certainly no match for the elite of the elite from the Vampires, and the Blood Knights starting to rack up kills very effectively there, pushing through these Hunters, who did get to use a decent amount of ammunition up overall. So it looks like, unfortunately, the Frostwork is a little bit glitched there. But he does get dragged down by the combined force of the Terror guys plus the Marauder, Manfred von Karstein, sorry. Without the Hunter Javelin support, these guys don't stand much chance. So very wisely, the Ferrule Manticore does drop down into combat. That's going to allow the Marauder Chieftain to come over and support him. And the Terror guy's taking a huge pounding so far. In comes that rock-hard Mammoth, hunting this Terror guys down. Those big horns starting to skewer the beast. And it does indeed fall. That's going to put the balance of power just a tiny bit in favour of the forces of the Norscans so far. But in comes a big breath attack on the Chieftain. And that's some really decent damage overall. Both the Banshees are still fighting strong, but the ground forces of the Norscans slowly grinding this out here as Marauders do come in and start to surround the Blood Knights and drag those vampires from their horses. Marauder Chieftain very low on health now, 2,600 up against Manfred's 1,600. Looks like he took a big beat actually there as he tried to retreat, but of course he does have more healing in the bag if necessary. Bruce the Hound up to 137 kills, and there's just no way for these Blood Knights to escape. They've been completely surrounded. They're in fact pinned in by some of their own zombies as well, and the combination of Marauders, Champions, and all that good stuff is dragging them down. They are shot cavalry. They can do okay in sustained combat, but realistically, you want to be cycle charging, just punching the enemy with as much force as possible before once again retreating. Looks like some of the Hunters have managed to rally here. Going to be getting in some really nice throws, and a big charge by Manfred into the side of the Chieftain nearly breaks him here, but in comes the ever loyal Ferrule Manticore hopping in there and trying to assist as the Chieftain's Mammoth goes up on his hind legs and comes down for a smash into Manfred, who has popped another Invocation of Heck trying to keep him going, but the Chieftain 1,700 health, still going strong, and it looks like all the forces of the Counts are starting to break here, slowly dragged down by the sheer attrition, and Manfred needs to get back up in the sky and attempt to assassinate this Chieftain, but it's going to be tough. The Ferrule Manticore is rampaging, is out of control at the nasty acts of Manfred up against his lord here, and a big breath attack coming in, bringing the Chieftain down to 500 health, but their army losses do set in, and a Pyrrhic victory for the Norscans, an incredibly close game. So let's go to the end stats there, guys, and do a tiny bit of analysis. But well played to both of these players, absolute champs. I believe Papa Palpatine did manage to take this series 2-1, so that was really tightly contested. It was a best of 3. And if you want to go see the rest of the Clan Wars between XMT and DVD, feel free to go back on the channel and check those out. There were some incredibly cool games overall. Now, I love Papa Palpatine's build here. I believe he said it was inspired by someone else's. I'm not sure who, so unfortunately I can't quite remember which player it was, but still, fantastic kills across the board. Of course, they were up against a lot of zombies, so the 189, 162, 180 is slightly exaggerated, but still a good day for Norscan kind. But the real MVPs here, those Marauder Hunter Javelins do so much work up against those Terrorgeists, really forcing him for life's hand there, even though he wanted to do that early skirmish game. He did manage to force off the Familiar Belfiend, so perhaps a worthwhile trade, but he did lose a lot of units doing it. And the cheap and cheerful Marauder Chieftain, actually a very nice pick here. I really do enjoy the flaming attacks, of course, good up against all regenerating forces, which the Vampire Counts do have a lot of. At the same time, very well played to Noob for Life as well, using those zombies to slowly saturate in to get the most out of his breath attacks and those spirit leeches. He did manage to basically get the caster, and the caster couldn't really, get any value in the game. So it was a little bit of a good start for him, but slowly got dragged down by the fearsome Vikings. I've been playing a lot of Norscans myself recently after watching that latest Assassin's Creed trailer. I got my Viking blood pumping, and yeah, these guys very cool indeed. But I hope you guys did enjoy. Massive shout out to these guys, and thank you Papa Palpatine for sending this in. If you do want to see your own replays on the channel, feel free to join my Discord, link just down below, and yeah, you guys can hop in and send them to me. I do get quite a lot of replays, so I can't guarantee I will get to them, and but keep sending them in, and eventually will be featured on the channel. We have a tournament as well starting tomorrow, Death Before Dishonor. You can join by joining the link just down below. Semi-finals and finals will be cast. But anyway, enough of me chatting, guys. Feel free to like and subscribe if you do enjoy this type of content. But apart from that, guys, until next time, peace, and as always, stay awesome.